So sticking with 4.3.9, we move on to branching. What we mean by that is, in Java, conditional blocks. So let's better make ourselves a new. Alright, so by branching they mean conditional blocks. And there's the if else block, and the if else else. And you'll see what I mean by the difference between those two. So as said in the previous video, quite often code will go straight down through from line 10 to 11 to 12, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes it'll loop where lines will repeat, as you just saw, but sometimes you need to make a decision about a decision. You need to decide whether the program should operate one way or another way. In the case of the if, it's just whether or not an extra couple of lines should be executed or not. So let's just do this one. Sout, blah, blah, blah. And then sout, blah, blah, blah. And let's say at this point, we want to make a decision that if something is true, we will print out something. So I'm going to go if, and then some condition that evaluates to true or false. So I'll just do something very simple to begin with. If 3 is equal to 3, which is silly, but if that is the case, then we will print out a third line, which will be a bunch of t's and y's and u's. So when I run this, you'll see that we will see all three lines. Now, if I had put in this conditional part something that's not true, for example, if 3 is equal to 4, which it's obviously not, then I will only see these two lines. And by the way, it will continue on, so that's probably a good thing to do as well. Let's go sout and right. So since this evaluates to false, we will not do what follows within the block. In other words, we'll see the ASDF, S, whatever, and the JJJJJ, but we won't see that line. Right, it just skips on by it. The condition can be anything, and it can be compound. And we haven't really gotten into compound things, but let's just do two true things, like that, and I think you've seen that at least once before. We'll do something else that is true, such as, well, two other numbers. How about two floats? 1.2 is equal to 1.2. So the full condition is true if both this part and this part are true. And they both are true, so this all evaluates to true. And so we will see all four lines. We could also have a Boolean before this if. So we could just have a straightforward Boolean. Something that is true is assigned true. And put that in there. So it's just one Boolean, but that Boolean is true. And so again, we will see the four lines. So it's branching. The program either branches off into this branch, and of course we could put other stuff as well, and do other stuff. I don't know, something like that. In which case we're going to see all three of those lines along with the other three lines. So we're branching. We're branching into that if block. Or not. So we make this false. I think you got the idea here, but one last time, that since this is false, we do not do what's inside the block. So we do the first two lines, skip all this, and go to that last line. That's the if, generally. If else is true branching, where you can go one way or the other. So I think we better comment this out, and do an if else. If something is true, so we'll start again with 3 equals 3, then we will, I'm just going to do something a little bit easier to see, and we'll start by SOUT. Okay. And we'll put there. So at this point, we go straight through until we reach the branch, and we check this condition. Is this true? If it is true, do what's between the following braces. And so when we run this, we will see all 3 lines. If it was false, we will not see the middle line. Else. So I just repeated the F. Here we go. Else. Else. Do something else. SOUT that. So slight difference here, right? Something, one of these 2 lines will print out. Either this or that. If this is true, the BBB will print out. If this is false, we go to the else. So the way it reads is, if this is true, print out that, else print out that, or do whatever is in those blocks. So right now, this is a false, so we should obviously see the first line. We get into the conditions, false, we skip this, we go to the 777. So we should see the A's, the 7's, the C's. 7 C's. Okay. And that's what we see. And again, just to be absolutely sure, these blocks can be more than individual lines. So I'll print out a few more B's, and here I'll print out a few more 7's. And let's change this. Let's change this to be true. So let's maybe go over here. Go. This is a true condition. This evaluates to true. Since it evaluates to true, we do what follows in the braces after it, but we skip the else. Okay, did that. Skipped all the 7's down to the C's. So this is really more, I guess, branching than this. I mean, that's branching off maybe, but maybe just skipping. Whereas this is more true to use the word branching, because it's either going to go this side or it's going to go that side. It's going to go lines 24, 25, 26, 27, down to 32, or it's going to go 24, 25, all the way down to 29, 30, and 32. And I think that's probably good enough, because we're going to repeat it mostly as we go to the if, else, if, else, if, else, if, else. That's where you have multiple conditions. Here there's just one condition or the other condition, one branch or the other branch. Here there will be multiple branches, if there can be 3 choices or 4 choices, and so on. And once again, and what do we do this time? Now let's do our branching. Something true again. We'll say, how about that? And then, as we just did, we go else if. Oh, I guess we didn't do that. We can else if. Well, we better change this just a little bit. Let's have a variable up above. Let's make a variable int my variable is assigned 1, 2, 5. Okay. And here we're going to say else if we won't go on forever, but let's do at least one more else if. Third. All right, and that is important. The last thing that I did, the else. The else is for every other situation, which in this case is where we're going to end up jumping to. So how do we read this? We have this variable, and this is just mumbo. It really makes no sense, mumbo jumbo, but have a variable, it's equal to 125. If the variable was equal to 121, we would print out that. Else if, in other words, if this is false, we jump to the else if. My variable is 122, we print out that. If that's false, we continue to go down through the list to check out the third condition. Is my variable equal to da-da-da-da? No. So since that's false, that's false, that's false, we end up at the else. Let me print that out. So first of all, just to show you that it does work the way we intend. We must have one other. Yeah, we have the before the branching. Yeah, okay, right, that makes sense. I don't need that there anymore, I don't think. But yeah, so we jump down to inside the else branch. So now let's say at this point it becomes true, 125. So if my variable equals 121, does it? Nope. So we skip this, we go to the next. Else if my variable equals 125, does it? Oh, yes it does. So that evaluates to true. Since that evaluates to true, then we print out inside the second branch and we stop. We don't continue on and print out those two things. We only print out one of these things. And we can do other stuff inside the ifs and else ifs, but we're just printing a single line. So let's run this, and we should expect to stop at this point and print out inside the second branch. And we do. And of course there can be other stuff before. I'm just going to put a blank line. And there can be other stuff after. I'll put another blank line first, and then I'll do anything at all. And so when we run this program from the beginning, all that's commented out. So we will get before the branching, we get a blank space line. False, don't do that. True, do this. And so skip to the end of the if-else block and continue on with blank line and that long line. You don't need to have the else there, by the way, but it's always a good idea to have an else when you have an if, else if, else if, else if, else if situation as a catch-all for, none of the other things were true. So quite often you will say something to the effect that none of the choices was true or valid or something like that or whatever. So let's go back and do that. So let's make it so none of them are equal to that int, and it's going to indicate to the user, you better try it again because none of the things we expected to be true was true. So always a good idea with an if, else if, else if, else if, else if, however many else ifs there are situation, to add at the end the else. So those are the three main ways of branching. Take one last look at them. The if, which either branches or does not. The else if, which branches one way or another. And then a multiple conditional situation where there are several branches, not just two, that are possible.